absolutely to me where we sit.
Okay, lovely to have you all this morning. I'm Councillor Taylor and I'm the chair of the meeting today. I'll go around and introduce ourselves. This is Councillor Taylor from my left.
I'm Councillor North Warrington and I'm precisely Councillor Carter.
Good morning everyone, I'm Councillor Oliver Edwards, I'm on Leeds City Council and represent Councillor Norton.
I'm Councillor Geraldine Dodson from Colchester Council and I'm Councillor for the Brick Council.
I'm Councillor Jackie Bergson from Wakefield Council and I represent Airedale, Newcastle. I'm Maureen Cummings, elected member Wakefield, representing Crofton, Ryan, Walton and Norton.
Chief Secretary Bushey from Westminster, please.
I'm not Chief Constable John Robbins, obviously. I'm Deputy Chief Constable Catherine Hankinson. I'm Deputy Mayor Policing and Crime Officer. I'm Wendy Stevens, I'm Research and Performance Manager for the Policing and Crime Team at the Combined Authority.
Good morning, Neil Hudson, I'm the Policy Manager for Vision Zero here for the Road Safety Paper.
Morning, Rob Forrest, Head of Police and Crime. Morning, Trevor Lake, Independent Member.
Jo Sykes, Independent Member. Good morning, I'm Councillor Gwen Law, Police representing Battle West.
Councillor Anthony Smith from the Wimley Warning Kirk, please.
Councillor Anne Kingston from Calderdale representing Skirkin Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Strong, I'm here for Bradford Council representing Eaton and Bradford.
Good morning, I'm Chris Hayden, I'm a councillor in Bradford.
Sharon Fraser from Wakefield Council, Legal Advisors and Council. Fiona Bernardo, Wakefield Council and Police and Councils.
Thank you all again and welcome. Item board, there's any apologies?
I have apologies from Councillor Celia Hickson, Andrew Carter and Councillor Hampton today.
Okay, Councillor Arrington, I do apologize. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 13th of June is following this regular minutes. Are there any comments on the minutes? Somebody happy to someone move it? I'm sure I have. Thank you. Item 3, late item, late item, you late item. Item 4, declaration amendments are aimed to declare us on the agenda for today. Thank you. Item 5, I am going to answer.
Thanks very much, Chair and colleagues. So item 5 is the priority 2 area in the policing plan that looks at safe places as private communities. This was part of the original plan, but obviously the public, when we tested the priorities of the mayor, this was really a high priority for the public and particularly antisocial behaviour. And so this paper outlines the work that we've been doing as a combined authority over the last 6 months or so, and it will be complemented with the refreshed Safe Places and Thriving Communities strategy, which is currently being updated. So we've got one, but it's being updated to reflect the new plan, but also the new environment that we're operating in. For example, the policing guarantee, which the new government has invested in, and in line with the focus on antisocial behaviour, the new neighbourhood policing guarantee, they be seeing an influx of new officers in the neighbourhood policing team, so 100 officers in West Yorkshire plus 45 specials. They're currently engaged in an activity being called a summer surge, which is looking at town centres, and we're being asked to provide quite a lot of monitoring data on a monthly basis to government on the work we're doing with the summer surge. And then there's going to be a winter surge because I spoke to the Home Office, so I hope that the learning that we get from the summer surge is passed on so that we improve our outcomes for people. So I'm really happy to answer any questions on paper.
Okay, we've got requested answer
I've just lost my little So I'll just put it in. All right, okay, yeah. On 2.3, the anti-social behaviour immediate justice pilot, there was a grant award of £2 million up to the 31st of March 25. So 2 questions. How did that go? Were all the funds spent? And is there anything coming behind it?
So it went really well, and obviously we were one of, I think there were about 8 forces chosen to get the immediate justice tank. I don't want to show off, but I think West Yorkshire were, one of the highest performing, if not the highest performing, in terms of the numbers of people who got through, particularly young people. So just for members who weren't there and don't know the history, immediate justice was an idea from the former policing minister, Chris Philp. We were literally given 2 weeks, we were told we were getting £1 million to roll out immediate justice, and what we wanted was people committing antisocial behaviour to wear high-vis vests and be seen by the public, moving graffiti and moving rubbish and all the rest of it. It sounded good in principle, but it was much more complicated because a lot of the antisocial behaviour was being committed by children. You can't just have this very quick justice for children because there's obviously safeguarding considerations. You have to engage the parents. So it ended up being a bit more complicated. But because we were able to engage our partners really quickly, particularly probation, no other area got probation on board. So because the Home Office wanted a sort of, people to be doing the graffiti removal and all the rest of it, well, that's what probation do all the time. So we just wanted them to add our people onto their current programmes, but no other probation service in the country agreed to be part of the immediate justice hours here in West Yorkshire. And that's one of the reasons why we got some really good outcomes. And we were able to give money directly to local authorities to employ youth workers to do some additional work with those young people. And so, not far off 1,000 young people, 800 and whatever the final figure was given to work with young people, and it was all wrapped around support to prevent them entering the criminal justice system. So great outcomes, huge numbers of people we worked with, but the new government came in and obviously saw that money was a big issue, so they told us that we were ending in March 2025. And so what we really would have liked to have done was to evaluate the impact over a longer period of time. So whether we'll be able to do that, I don't know, because we haven't got funding to do it. There might be opportunities through some of our partners to see, to maybe do some dig sampling and looking at whether any of those young people went on to commit further offences 12 months after or 2 years after. That would be a really interesting piece of work if we could find resources to do it. So it was great in the moment, lots of young people diverted, adults also made to repay the community for the nuisance, the damage that they were causing, but the long-term impact, hopefully we'll get some indication that we may never know.
It would be good to stay out that sort of
Yeah. But also we can talk to our partners to see whether or not there's any process that they can employ to track some of those young people either coming back or they're not coming back, because they're not coming back, and that's the highest testament to the efficacy of that programme.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hicks.
Was that me? Sorry.
Yes,
Yes, correct. Good. You've actually pretty much covered what I was going to ask, because I was going to ask about the what evaluation is being undertaken for the immediate justice pilot and what the impact of the immediate justice pilot is. Have you got funding for the evaluation is my first question.
So we had there is funding, was funding for the first year.
Yes.
I don't think there's funding for the second year because obviously the government pulled the programme, changed. It was 10 areas, it was £10 million, and I think they thought that they had other priorities that rather spend that money on. And actually, the data from other areas was nothing like our data set. Very, very small numbers of people entering the immediate justice process, and there were lots of reasons for that, mainly because people could opt out of this. They didn't have to. It's like an out-of-court process. People didn't have to go into this process if they didn't want to. And because we've got such good partnerships in West Yorkshire, we were able to get people to agree to go through the process because it was diversion and they didn't have to then get a criminal record or so we were really successful, and I don't think everyone's got numbers like us. Just to say that obviously one of the things we were able to do was offer restorative justice, and so there's an opportunity for us to go back to our restorative justice providers to see whether or not they've got any data information that might help us to understand whether there's been any long-term benefits. So they will
Are you
have
going to do that? That's really my question.
Yeah,
Well, is that definitely going to happen?
Well, I'm just saying now, I will go to them and ask them what data they've got. The problem is that with restorative justice, they don't have access to criminal justice data sets, so they can't go to niche or whatever the probation data set is. So I'll ask them what they might be able to do with the information that they've got, but obviously they don't have access to any criminal activity that someone who's been engaged in restorative justice might have undertaken. But they will have information, it might be qualitative information about how both parties felt afterwards and what the feedback was about and whether they were getting that kind of stuff. But it won't be a data set because they can't access niche or any other criminal justice partners' data.
Yeah, so please do that.
Yeah, and I'll also ask I'll get Julia to ask the other partners and see if
It's
there's
so
anything else.
useful, isn't it, to know we've found something that actually makes a difference. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Deputy Mayor, Deputy Chief Constable. I wanted to ask about the work with the business community around assaults on shop workers and associated crimes, and some of the work that's being done around that. So not just assaults, but also things related to shoplifting. So one of the issues that's been reported to me, both by shop workers and also by police in my areas, is around reporting. So particularly when it comes to thefts under a certain amount, there's very often a perception and a reality that things are not reported, and this can even be the case between different stores. So I'm not going to name individual supermarkets in case the investors are watching this meeting, but I do have an example of two stores in nearby locations, one of which has been cooperating very effectively with the police. They've been sharing information, sharing all of the footage automatically by Good Sam, by the NICE app, whereas there is another which has room for improvement, let's put it that way, and one of the issues being that staff, that there are very few staff who are trained to be able to access the CCTV footage, and I think this is almost certainly a wider issue, and it's an issue for bigger retailers, but also for smaller retailers. So my question for you as part of your liaison role as Deputy Mayor is, what things are you doing to encourage all of the retailers, but particularly large retailers, to make sure that information is being uploaded in real time, all information is being uploaded in real time, staff are being trained, and that there's that consistency in reporting between all of the stores across West Yorkshire?
Yeah, thanks for that. I talk to West Yorkshire Police on a regular basis about retail crime, response to retail crime. About 18 months, maybe 2 years ago now, we actually had a dedicated paper that came to our community outcomes meeting just on retail crime, because we knew that as a result of all sorts of things, cost of living increase, lockdown, addiction, there was a surge in shoplifting in particular, and we were hearing from the co-op and retail associations about the risks to their staff that were being reported. And so we've been working alongside West Yorkshire Police to improve the communication with those big retailers, but also small retailers. So, for example, in the paper we talked about West Yorkshire Police brought together, and that's Damien Miller, the ACC, who has been leading that for the last 18 months, and constantly a number of retailers now attend that group, and it's really good sharing of information. But also at the neighbourhood policing level, there's been really good work with the local bids, the business improvement districts, particularly in places like Wakefield here. I was at an event a couple of months ago where a new radio system's just been launched with all the local retailers. The police were here, the press were here, the retailers were here, all working together to share information more quickly, but also to report, because at the point when the copying took place and the report was done, actually data nationally was showing that about 60% of crimes were not being reported by retailers. So we really had to push back in our discussions with retailers about their tolerance for criminality in their stores. So not only were they allowing shoplifting to take place to a certain value, so they say, no, we can tolerate X amount of stock going out the door every day or week, which obviously is a no-no, because that's just encouraging more and more people to go in and steal, and particularly serious organised criminals to go in and steal, but it's also putting their staff at risk. And then obviously we've been working alongside government to criminalise assault of a retail worker, which is now coming into being, which I think is, we'll see whether or not that leads to a decrease in that offence type, but time will tell, because lots of it's only just been brought into being. So I go to lots and lots of different businesses. Also, I've been to the British Retail Crime Consortium, that's the British Retail Consortium. Met with the Co-op, I've met various different retail bodies. I went to a lunch a couple of months ago to speak to lots of different business people about what we're doing in this space, but also to explain to them what they needed to do in order to get their response from West Yorkshire Police. But particularly in places like Leeds, I've met Pete Hall, who has done enormous work at grassroots level with businesses around street homelessness, acquisitive crime, working with the local authority, the street homeless team, all the third sector involved in that, because it's not just about the people committing crimes, it's why they're committing crimes, it's looking at that holistically, coming in with all the different partners, and so he's done a tremendous amount of work, runs workshops for businesses, share a lot of data about some of those key nominals who are involved in that criminality. And obviously where addiction is one of the driving forces, there's a lot of support that's put in place around those people using those third sector partners. But where it's part of serious and organised criminality, then there are obviously different being used. So I think we've done a lot of good work. I think we'll see that the trend has gone down, although we haven't been the data, but we will when we get the next performance report. But I wonder if the legislative principal wants to add a bit more to what I just said.
I think the only thing I would add to your response would be, I do think there's a definite sense in terms of the extra offices in neighbourhoods. A lot of those are in town centres, as you would imagine, and definitely from the last couple of weeks in speaking to district staff, I know that they've had some good feedback from partners and community members, and even just nipping out for a sandwich at lunchtime. There does seem to be that sense of seeing more people around, which obviously is a deterrent effect, isn't it, in town centres.
And that happened in Broadway. I went to Bradford, to the Broadway. I met the management of the Broadway with Julian, your new neighbourhood inspector. They were delighted. Yeah. They were delighted.
I think they are actually seeing the difference, which is good.
And crime had gone down. The said that shoplifting had actually gone down, and assaults had gone down.
Yeah, and I think whilst our ability to gather evidence using things like Good Sam, like you just mentioned, is improving, we need to then make sure with the people that attend the Business Crime Forum that ACC Miller runs, that we keep sort of asking and training those staff who work within that area to make sure that we've got good availability of CCTV when we need it as it happens, because that's our best chance of getting on top of something early on. in an investigation. So yeah.
And I should also add that there's a crime prevention team that work really proactively with businesses. So at Christmas, I went out with leads with the crime prevention team, and they were going to those high-profile businesses that were being targeted. So Hotel Chocolat, for example, took me there, and they've done a lot of work with that business about having multiple doors, stacks of very expensive chocolate next to the door. You know, so about this is how you can minimise your loss. So there were loads and loads of really proactive work being done, talking to the security staff about what they could be doing differently. And so we went to several businesses, and then we went to Trinity, talked to all the security staff at Trinity about what they could be doing differently. And it felt really joined up. It felt like it was a system. It wasn't the police going in power over and you know, people thought, oh, the police are saving us. Actually, everybody was working for each other together to make a difference. So we should. Do you want to follow?
Yes, just that's very helpful. In terms of shoplifting, you mentioned retailer tolerance of shoplifting and some of the conversations that you had had. There, I wondered if you could say a little bit more about what kind of response and what kind of uptake you have had to that message around shops and large retailers, especially not simply writing things up. Do you feel that they've responded to that message?
Well, it depends on which store you're talking to. So you might get one store that's a big name, and one manager will be a bit more laid back about it, and then exactly down, a mile down the road, the same, retailer chain, but a different manager, completely different. So it does depend on the individuals, because I think from central office there is a tolerance, but that gets practiced in different ways depending on the manager. I know that nationally there has been conversations with stores about not having a tolerance for reporting, and I think the point has gone up because the conversation's been happening. But you're always going to get those huge businesses who feel like the time it takes to report is time that we'll lose, and money that we might lose, and it's better to lose the stock than lose that time and that productivity. And it's an ongoing outcome.
Okay, thank you, Alison. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alison. I think there's been some answers actually to the question of the information you've given us. I'm really pleased about the neighbourhood policing guarantee, and even more pleased that my area will have that initiative. But my worry is about the communication around it, because there's lots of great initiatives going on all over, and when I go to a PAC meeting, the police don't always know about all the stuff, and the public don't know as well. And I wonder if we could, I hate the cliche, parliament manager, blah, 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 all that sort of thing, but whatever simple ways we can have of communicating what's happening now, because people are really cynical, about, we've heard it all before, when are you going to arrest them, and blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. So it's just reassurance about simple communication, I suppose.
So I was actually in Castleford, a retailers meeting with businesses, with the Home Secretary, probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, where communication was mentioned, and ACC Miller was also there to talk about the summer surge and the increase in resources that West Yorkshire Police were going to be able to deploy to that neighbourhood footprint. And one of the reasons why West Yorkshire Police spend a lot of time pushing their community newsletter, the online one that I can't remember the name of now, Community Alert, is so that they can target that local information to tell people what's happening in their patch, because it's not a one-size-fits-all for Wakefield. It's actually by district, by street, it could be street level, it could be town centre level. It's the local policing team that they populate that information and send it out. So that's one of the reasons why Community Alert was pushed. It led to some fallings out back in the day, but more and more people have actually signed up for that, and it's a really, really good way to get information about the police. The police do use all sorts of social media. Very difficult now because social media is so toxic, so they are looking at their strategy around that. It's obviously times are tough for all public services, so it's not a huge central communication resource, and it tends to be quite high levels of stuff that comes from the centre, and the public would be happy about that. We don't want a separate communications team in each of the districts. So it is down to local neighbourhood policing to populate that social media post or community alert. But there are ways for the public so the community alert is two-way, so the information goes out, the public can actually feed information back in through that process, which I didn't know, but they can. So that's a really good way to feed in that information. And then obviously if we're an organisation, we've got the partnership intelligence portal, the PIP. So schools, community centres, anybody who is a partner of the police will be given access. The little process to go through, it's not complicated, and they can then feed in information about, is this group of useful, and we've got concerns because of X, Y, or Z. It might be a safeguarding concern, it might be a concern that they're being exploited into crime, it might be we're worried about Mrs X who lives at 27, whatever it is, street. So there's all that intelligence then that gets put in again, even though the police don't report back through the PIP. There are all sorts of partnership meetings, private partnership meetings where that information can be shared. There's also packed meetings where the police can talk to the public about, in general terms, and sometimes when cases have come to an end, they can give the detail of what's happened. So the police are hopefully getting better at communicating. It is really difficult. It's a key strand to trust and confidence. Feeding back all the good stuff that we're doing, it sets the expectations, but it's always a challenge, as the Chief Constable's told us many times, because you have to balance, the workload that you've got, reporting to the victim that you're working with about what's happening with their case, running the risk of that person, disengaging because you're not keeping them involved, and that's very high for formulated defences, of course, and then telling the wider public. So there's always going to be tension, but the constantly trying, and that's where Tracy and I think are also assets on behalf of the police, because we're always saying, give us messaging, we'll put that out there for you, we've got a team, we've got lots of ways that we can support you. So it's a partnership approach, we're all trying our best, and you can help us too. There's stuff happening in your law, good stuff happening, successes, you can put that out in your various channels, that's also helpful.
What was that called, Robinson? Sorry, partnership
Intelligence proposal, the PIP.
Thank you, Chair. Tangential to Councillor Ferguson's question. Again, I'm sure everyone in the panel welcomes the neighbourhood policing guarantee. You're saying 5.8 that each local authority has submitted their plans for some initiative. I just wonder if you can either provide the panel with some highlights of what each of those areas is, or whether you can maybe reach out to the councils directly and give details of the plans for their areas, and we can obviously share that information as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're very high level, so it wouldn't be useful to give, a Beeston Council leads this plan, because it doesn't tell you specifically about Beeston. The Wakefield plan will tell you about Castleford, and the Leeds plan will tell you about Harehouse, because there are some nominated town centres that are included in the plan, and so there are a few places. But we're happy to share with you. There's nothing confidential in there.
No, I didn't think it was.
But it's just, it's not, a hugely comprehensive, and it's quite comprehensive, but it's not got lots of detail about, on Tuesday we're going to do this, and on Wednesday we're going to do this, but it's about, these are the programmes of work, and what I've also tried to do is show some of the complementary activities. So for example, I've talked about, because we do like an overarching document capturing the local plans that have been sent to us, but we've also sent the local plans from West Yorkshire Police. So I've tried to capture things like Clearhole Build. So sitting alongside this activity in Harehouse, for example, we've got Clearhole Build that's already driven down serious violence by just short of 60%. So I want to give the context that other things are already happening, and this will complement what's happening, but it's being, there's additional value because Clearhole Build does bring in those additional resources, or another. So we'll do lots of different examples of some of the things that have been done. So for example, in Calderdale, I talked a lot about some of the brilliant work that's been done by Chief Inspector Mary Preston in Calderdale, 17 closures of domestic premises that have been cuckooled, vulnerable people living in those houses. She's been working, and this is before Sunset, working really closely with housing provider, local authority, and also some work that one of the local charities has been doing to get extending housing benefits so they can put security staffing on at night to keep those vulnerable people safe, so that the police don't have to put a lot of resources in those house closures. So all that is stuff that I've told Home Office about putting out plan. It's really important stuff. It's complementary. It's stuff we're doing every day, but it's also adding value to the additionality that the Home Office is giving us.
Thank you. I think it's also a really good example of how the role can get in collaborative work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. Will we receive that before the next meeting?
Yeah, when we send it to you then today.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Councillor.
I'm sending myself a minute.
Yes.
I've got the email.
Yeah, mine's just a comment really. I want to obviously commend the police for the action in fire and the way you've explained it. And you did mention in there about COVID and lockdown and the cost of living crisis. And it's really pleasing to hear that you're helping people who are probably shoplifting because there's no other way to live. So it's good to hear that rather than criminalising people, you're actually got a system for helping people who are on drugs, and particularly people who are suffering the cost of living crisis and shoplifting to feed their families. So it's really pleasing to hear that we're not criminalising people who are doing it for those reasons, really. And that was my comment, Chair.
Yeah, and can I just say, Councillor Cummings, that when we had the paper to our community outcomes meeting, the police had done a lot of work understanding who was committing these crimes, and a third of all the people who had been, I don't know if they'd been convicted, but who were in the system for shoplifting, a third had no markers for shoplifting, so they were new offenders to that crime type, which we felt was probably linked to cost of living. And a third were young people, the children. And again, and it was food, people were stealing food. And so again, we felt that cost of living was probably a big driver in that. And I think 60% overall there was drug and or alcohol addiction as a key driver involved. So there was a lot of heartbreaking intelligence in that report. And still, it's an old book. I'm sure you'll be interested to see, so I will send it to you because it was a really powerful document to read.
I think most authorities, if I just may come back, Chair, I've got some way of helping those people. And it's good to see the partnership working between the police and the authorities as well. Since COVID, I have to say, where you can actually, the police have got somewhere to refer someone that is actually stealing to eat.
Yeah, that's it. And the mayor gave 3 million to local authorities, so for food, for fuel and for advice. So, and that money's still being spent in the 5 areas of West Yorkshire.
And I think, I'm sorry, I'm just coming back in
Okay.
I think as well, and Jackie runs a baby food bank, and baby food is so expensive now. It would be interesting to see how many people are stealing baby food.
Yeah, I echo everyone that Councillor Cummings says. It's really good to see the police and the authority working together for the vulnerable. So I want to thank the police and also Trace for the work that they are doing with local authorities to make sure everyone being seen and heard and listened to. Councillor Carter.
Thanks, Chair. It's about the building community resilience under the mayor's funding. I noticed most of this, all this money is given to community or voluntary or not-for-profit organisations in communities, and it seems to remain award-based or on a numbers scale. Sorry?
No, somebody, it's okay.
Okay. My question really is there somewhere within the strategy where this can be used to group various communities together? I'm thinking that West Yorkshire has a lot of rural communities who only have small numbers, and they don't necessarily have the voluntary organisations in place in those rural communities to be able to apply for this. And some of the organised crime, particularly car crime, car theft coming across the borders in lots of cases, is a very problematic. I wonder if there was some mechanism where that strategy can be used to support them through this fund.
So the engagement team, the Mayor's engagement team, Sharon Ward often comes to this meeting, who leads the Mayor Safe Communities Fund. We're really happy to meet any groups. So they don't have to be a voluntary organisation. It can be a community association that have set up in a locality. And Sharon and her team were really happy to go and explain the fund and how to complete the form and to support any organisation to complete that form, because we don't make decisions about who gets funded. There's a people panel that makes that decision, so we can support. When we've got a big enough fund, so the one that's just closed, that went live in the first week in June and was just closed, I think, last week, that was only £350,000. But when it was £1 million, which we gave out in February, we allowed clustering of groups or organisations of up to 4 organisations to come together and bid for up to £80,000. So when it's a small pot, £350,000 is up to 10 grand. When it's a bigger pot, we allow up to £20,000. So when 4 organisations come together, that's 80 grand. And so it's possible for 1 or 2 rural organisations working with a church or working with I don't know, a children's group to come together and bid for up to £80,000 when we've got the funding, because it's a really small pot of money and we rely on proceeds of Crime Act monies to be able to fund that activity. So the answer is yes, but obviously you have to find the constituent groups in the locality to come together, and then it's that quality of the bid which our team can really help you with if anyone's interested in having a visit from Sharon and her team.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trevor, could you ask questions?
Yeah, my question's on here.
Okay, so that's the end of item 5. Thank you, Alison, for the update. Thank you, Ms. President. We'll now move on to item 6, safer roads.
Yeah, so obviously under the previous paper, one of the areas of activity is Vision Zero. We're all very passionate about Vision Zero in West Yorkshire. And so it's a very comprehensive update written by Neil and Phoebe, but also fed into by all the Vision Zero partners. And we're, again, remain really excited about the progress we're making. I've just been in London for 3 days, just come back on the train, and lots of the other police and crime commissioners, deputy mayors, want to come to West Yorkshire to see what we're doing, because they're all hearing on great about the progress we're making and the way that it's working as a system. And so hopefully you'll all feel that we're doing some good work in this space, and we're really happy to answer your questions.
Okay, so that's a quick one. I see. Thank you. So without questions, first it will be Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask you about the off-road bike team. So this is a big issue in lots of communities, and with it being the summer, I think residents often notice an increase in the number of masked bikes on the roads, on the pavements. I think it can be particularly problematic in areas where you're on the boundary of 2 local authorities and different policing teams and people going backwards and forwards. So I know that affects a number of us around this table. I'd like to ask around the use of technology and whether there are innovations in more effective use of technology. So, for example, I know in Kent, I have a counterpart there who was talking about the use of drones.
Written drones.
Within there. You read my mind. But is that something that we can be doing more around the better use of technology? Given it's not just safer for the police, but it's also safer for other road users as well, and can be very effective in terms of public perception.
Yeah, so thank you for that. We know from what the public tells us that antisocial use of vehicles, including off-road bikes, is a major priority, and wherever we go, this is something that people tell us about, which is why 100% of the streets funds that we received in 23, the finishes in 25, March 25, we dedicated a big chunk of that money to funding both off-road bikes, training to ride off-road bikes, because you can't ride a bike unless you have the training. You also need different training for on-road, off-road bikes. It's very complicated, talk to the Police Federation. So that funding of about £770,000 funded a team across the whole of West Yorkshire. I think I might have said before here, but some of you obviously were members then, about a piece of work that Calderdale did, the inspector there, the Liverpool Police Inspector, using that resource, and how he absolutely smashed this gang of young people who were tormenting residents in Calderdale, and that's now going to be replicated again, because when I went to the SLT in Calderdale, they see that they did great bits of work there. I thought they were very happy about it. They did a lot of social media, countering what the kids were putting on social media, but then that inspector's gone through another bit of Calderdale, so we're going to replicate that again because they saw how important it was. So the Mayor's provided that money. I know that there's now off-road bike teams across the whole of the 5 districts. I went to visit Leeds last year. They're doing some brilliant work, and they gave me some data about the number of bikes that they've been able to recover. I've got the data here. It was quite considerable, and as social media, the result of off-road bikes in South Leeds have dropped by 22% as a result of the work that they have been doing. So it's very impactful. It's definitely making a difference. The problem is, of course, that the public are very agitated about offering off-road bikes. They're not so good ringing the police and saying where the bikes are, because they know where the bikes are, because they're in the houses next door to them, or next to the bottom of the garden that they can see from their bedroom windows. So they'll complain about the noise, complain about the risks, because there are absolutely risks of people going about on bikes, to children, to the riders themselves. But we need to really engage them in the intelligence gathering to get them to give us information so the police can find these bikes and remove them as source. And also we're doing this work with the industry, the motorbike industry, about making it hard to steal bikes in the first place. But it's an ongoing problem, but one that we know the public is really excited about and wants to do more. But we need to do it together. Yeah, anything you want to add?
Just that you're absolutely right, we do use drones.
Oh, yeah.
As you would expect, because that is much safer to be able to follow and be able to house people and then deal with them when they're not on the bikes, so to speak.
And smart
Safer
water.
for everybody. And we do use smart water again.
What was that?
Just safer for rider and police officer clearly, and then we can follow and utilise that smart water at a future stage. So yeah, both of those things we do use quite a lot, but absolutely that information and intelligence. I think the thing is that, as part of road safety lessons linked to POLED, these are the kind of things and the dangers of riding off-road bikes and quad bikes without the relevant safety equipment. It is so dangerous, isn't it? Often seen as a bit of fun, which then leads to antisocial behaviour in people. But it's not just about the people around there not liking it and the noise, it's the risk that those young people are out on their own.
And we are funding education through the Mayor's Communities Fund, so Bumpy first, for example, but that's another area of investment that the Mayor's been making.
How many, are you able to give us an indication of how many drones we have in West Yorkshire, whether in West Yorkshire as a whole or by district?
Is that commercially sensitive?
Yeah,
I think
I'm not sure actually. I wouldn't want to just commit myself to. I wouldn't know, to be honest with you, as an exact question, and I'm giving them more information.
And you're buying them and decommissioning them all the time.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They come on, yeah, and we get new technology all the time. So, but yeah, we have got to have particular licenses to be able to fly drones. Not anybody can just pick up a drone and fly it, or certainly not the ones that we utilise. It's quite strictly regulated.
Okay, thank you. Trevor.
Yeah, thanks, yeah. First of all, very good report.
I wrote it.
It's nice to see that things have improved year on year on the section 2.7. see it, on their every day, there's constant flow of traffic, the challenges, the demand on them may not see it west across the country. And you see the frustration of drivers on that, frustrated with either bad drivers or just unsettled or delays or whatever. And I think that's got to be an important consideration in the strategy plan, getting these numbers down. I just wondered if anything you could share with us around.
I'll start. Obviously, we've got a Safe Roads data group, which brings all the data, not just from districts, but also from the motorway. And on our Vision Zero board, we have Highways England. We're responsible for oversight of motorways. So we've got that partnership approach. We've got the data that will help inform some of the decision making. Some of it is about national funding to improve motorways. I don't know what role smart motorways play as part of this. It's got smart motorway, of course. So it might be worth us maybe having a look at some of the data we're coming back and going on that. But Neil?
Yeah, absolutely. So where Alison said, National Highways are a key partner for us within Vision Zero, and at that data group we did actually have a presentation from National Highways around it. So we have done a lot of work with them, and what we've actually done is gone back to say, well, you've identified an issue in a particular area, let's look at what's causing that and do something about it. You'd be surprised, some of it is actually on and off ramps in terms of the motorway. That's lots of work ongoing. National Highways are for us, but not only that, National Highways nationally are working with Vision Zero, and they are working towards it as well. So we are already picking up raising.
But perhaps next time you can show us a bit more.
Yes, so the next time we do Vision Zero report, we'll include
what I will say in terms of the report, primary focus of this report is around our scrutiny around policing and policing role within Vision Zero. So there are other partnership activities that aren't contained within this report because there's so much going on across the board. Obviously with that, in terms of the National Highways, things certainly can bring it forward, but I want to try and keep the focus more on the policing side of things. That's the report in the structure that it is.
Sorry, can I sorry.
I was just going to chair back, if I may. Obviously, from a policing point of view, we'll always have visibility on our motorway network, as you'd expect. But equally, when an incident happens, that's where that resource will get drawn to, understandably, alongside other agencies such as Highways Agency, etc. But what I would say also is, in terms of poor driving, lots of people now have dash cams and so on. We've got Operation Snap, which I know you've heard about before, but which goes from strength to strength. And certainly that's a really good way of the public being safely, obviously, being eyes and ears as well in terms of poor driving behaviour. So,
I think the snaps in the report brings some very good statistics about the effectiveness of that.
Thank you, Councillor.
And following on from Operation Snap, you took the question right out of my mouth. First of all, I want to say a massive thank you to you and Neil for attending a really good meeting in Norton, and we want me to thank you for your openness, friendliness and your wealth of knowledge. But talking about Operation Snap, it was this is only the second meeting I've been to, so that was the first time I've heard about Operation Snap. I just wonder if there's what detail you may have, is it going to be in the future performance report, and about the promotion of it as well. As I say, and I think I said this on the evening, that was the first time I've heard of that. I've since looked at it and I've distributed the links that you very kindly sent to me. I just wonder if we've any feedback on how you just said how good it is. You just said how good it is. But I just wondered if that's going to be in a future report, and if so, how can we promote it better?
So we definitely talk about all areas of performance in that performance report, which will come next time. And there's a small bit on the communications work that Dave, who works in our team, has been undertaking. And we do from time to time do all sorts of campaigns around Snap. So I've done a video, Tracy's done a video, the police regularly do videos, and the West Yorkshire Safe Cabin Partnership has done quite a lot of plugging of Snap, which is why it's gone up so massively 26% since the last report, and 10,500 pieces of evidence uploaded, so more and more people are getting to know about it. And clearly we'll keep on banging that drum, because what we want is for people who think they can drive as they like. It's not just about those fixed cameras or those average speed cameras. You don't know where the cameras are. It could be the car behind you, it could be the car on the road. You're being watched all the time while you're driving that car. So drive safely, keep everyone safe. And that's what we want. We want everyone to subscribe to our Snap, get those dash cam cameras, and be part of keeping our community safe. It's not spying. It's about being a concerned member of the public, being part of the solution, keeping everybody safe, because it might be your child, it might be your partner, and if we're not part of the solution, we're part of the problem, are we?
I was just going to say, one of the key things for me is, as councillors, please can I make a request for you to follow Vision Zero West Yorkshire on social media. The reason being is the elements around Operation Snap, the promotion of it, the videos on that side are going out, but also through West Yorkshire Police channels as well directly. And there are a number of initiatives that we're working with, and I know also at the meeting at Nottingham we spoke with you about community concern sites. There are videos around that, and it's trying to get that knowledge out there. The more that we can work with you as councillors to be able to get that message out, the more people out there know about it, the more that we can do, the safer that people are.
Councillor, is it a follow-up question?
It is.
Right.
It's tangentially related to that, if that's okay.
That's fine.
So, the Safer Streets initiatives, and I was looking at in this section about the school streets initiative, and that obviously direct officer attendance can't always happen in terms of that. And I was reading in that section about civil enforcement opportunities, and I don't really know what that is, so that would be good. But the reason that I'm concerned about that, and that's related to what you're talking about, is that we've had some issues in my area about like vigilante groups. So we've seen a man acting suspiciously, and we three men are going to go to the school gates and keep everyone safe and this kind of thing. So when I read civil enforcement opportunities, it sort of scares me a bit, because that's the kind of action that people talk about doing, and it's illegal, it's unsafe, it's scary, and I wonder how that's managed.
Yeah, I mean, the police will detain civil enforcement because they've got police powers and the rest of it, we don't need to do that. I think this is about local authorities, schools.
To be fair, when it comes to school streets, the key thing that is being alluded to there is actually on the Traffic Management Act Part 6. It's moving traffic offences primarily as the civil enforcement side of things. And at the moment we have 2 districts within West Yorkshire who have that opportunity to be able to enforce under that Act. There are 2 further ones that have just applied, and we hope they're going to be successful, and that will then be in place in November. But in terms of what was alluded to is the Traffic Management Act and moving traffic offences.
Yeah, but it's local authorities. They're employed people, they're not members of the public who take it upon themselves to do things. They're employed people by the local authority who have designated powers to be able to deal with it.
I'm familiar with the Safer Streets because I've been involved in that thing, but it's when I read about in the report about civil enforcement opportunities developed, and I just...
It's a legal process, it's not vigilante.
It's that scary line between people taking it upon themselves, to stand at school gates and things like that. Keep an eye on,
Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Excellent, thank you. Just a general question about the level of engagement from local authorities and other stakeholders, and whether everybody's fully on board with Vision Zero and getting that engagement they need. And also, as Trevor mentioned, it was good to see a drop from last year to this year. I think it was about 8.6%.
Yeah.
Do you think that's Vision Zero actually starting to move down? Do you think that's a trend that's going to continue?
Thank you very much for the question about political engagement, because as you know, this is how I can take some credit for Vision Zero, because in my very first meeting, remember, Councillor Andy Carter talked about speeding cars and the lack of cohesion across West Yorkshire. I went to meet with the police, they reinforced what she had said, and Tracy and I got together and thought, oh, there's an opportunity here to do something in a much more coordinated way, and we need to engage politicians, because one of the things that was clear to me as a former councillor who could not get speed cameras on Southern Road, where, as you know, lots of people died, I just could not get my head around the lack of accountability for the decisions that were being made. And so what we did, Tracy and I, is we wrote a paper for the 5 leaders of West Yorkshire, saying these are the current arrangements, and there's no political engagement, and it feels a bit as though there are people making major decisions about the roads of West Yorkshire, the safety of our communities. They're not accountable to anybody, and none of us really agree with what they're doing, and so let's get that political accountability. So when you look at the partnership structure, you'll see it's now the board, and then you've got your scrutiny, function, strategic, tactical delivery. And it's much clearer now about who does what, who's held to account, who's responsible. So the 5 leaders agree, and then we've got politicians from the 5 local authorities who sit on the board, as well as those senior officers who still sit on that Vision Zero, that strategic group, which has got the directors and highways sitting on it. And I think that we now have much better clarity around who's responsible for what. And I meet with the leaders of all 5 local authorities every quarter. Vision Zero is always on the agenda. We always have an update about how's Bradford doing, how Wakefield's doing, is Colindale engaged in the way they should. And sometimes I say, well, it could be better, and other times I say, it's probably your best. I like to do that because you know there's a bit of competition there. So we're always talking about the progress that each local authority is making, and that might be about spending their CRSTS funding, that might be about writing their strategy, the progress they're making there or not. It might be about a change in personnel, and we've got a gap here, so that's why things are not moving here, what we're doing about that personnel. And so we have regular political conversations about that, because ultimately every local authority wants to save the lives of the people who live in their locality. And Vision Zero is the way to do it, demonstrably the way to do it, and so there is huge political engagement now. And I think that you're starting to see the downturn in some of the numbers, or upturn, depending on which way you're looking at it, some improvement. And I do believe that the way we're thinking about Vision Zero, that whole system approach, is beginning to show some positives. Don't get complacent, there's so much more to do. If we want to halve by 2030, and it's still our ambition to do that, then we have got to have everyone shocked to the massive need to continue the direction that we are. We need to go a bit further and faster than we have been doing. We've got an event on 14th of August in Leeds, the Vision Zero event. You're all welcome. And this is the second event, so the first one was in Bradford when we launched the strategy. Leeds are now going to have an event which is open to the public. It's all about telling people about progress we're making. I think next year is going to be Kirklees.
It's Colindale.
Colindale next year. So we have got that engagement, that buy-in. Sometimes it ebbs and flows for particular reasons, but you know, I'm there with the mayor to say, come on, what you're doing, because at the end of the day, I lost my sister Debbie. A member of our body agreed with his daughter will be forever 12. And if people, it feels like they're not quite on board, Ian's very happy to remain on board there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kingston.
Thank you very much. Great to hear that there's going to be Vision Zero event in Colindale next year. Thank you. We need one. Page 14 of the report, 2.13.5, the anomaly in the data table for Colindale fatalities in 2023. I feel like it's just been dismissed as an anomaly without any explanation of why there was that significant increase, and has that rise continued since? Do we know, is there any evidence? I know significant numbers of what feels like to me fatalities in Colindale. Has that continued, and is there any plan to do anything about it.
Yeah, so in terms of that, we do not dismiss any death on our roads. One death on our roads is one too many, and we will never dismiss any. We will always look into those, and as part of the post-collision response, we do look into why certain things have happened. What we actually have in Calderdale for the data in question is a small number of collisions where unfortunately there were multiple fatalities within that collision, and those numbers, and you've always got to look at the victim first, but there were multiple people killed in one collision, and that's where we get an anomaly. So in certain cases, when we look at some of the other figures, there might have been a larger number of collisions, but less people injured or killed within those. In terms of Caldwell, the numbers have gone down for the following year, for 2024. So the reason that I can't actually give you figures for 2024 is because they're not yet verified by the DFT. So you'll notice the graphs that we put at the beginning, I did put provisional data in for 24 to give you an idea, but we constantly look at these. And one of the things that Alison put in place for the Vision Zero board is that on every single agenda that we have for that, we have a look at how many people have lost their lives since the last time we came together, and we actually talk about that, and we make sure that we are focusing on each and every person.
Can I ask a follow-up question? It's about your explanation about it being a multiple fatality event that's created this anomaly. Is there a strategy specifically to address the causes of multi-fatality events? Is there an understanding of why there were multiple fatalities?
It's normally young people driving cars. I mean, our strategy is
Young people driving cars.
It's young people who've just passed the test with all the mates in the car, and you know, sometimes substances and alcohol is involved, not always, but sometimes. And you know, our strategy is graduated driving licences. You know, but we're trying to get the government to agree with us.
So that relates to what I asked.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that's
the nitrous oxide.
I'm not saying that that's specifically the case in Calderdale.
Yes.
I don't know what that case is, but generally speaking, you've got a lot of a high number of deaths in one incident because you've got a very young person who's just passed the test driving the car with late at night on country roads that don't have control, and that normally is the outcome of lots of people die in one car. So
Seatbelts are a huge mitigating factor as well. So again, that's about educating, you know, young people, especially as they start to learn to drive and be passengers in cars. It's about that, you know, good behaviour in a car. It's about that, you know.
Absolutely.
Because we used to all have as adverts on the television, if you can remember that. And seatbelts became you know, a mandatory thing in cars.
Absolutely, and seatbelts is one of the 85 that we work with, and actually each one of those we are looking into from a data perspective to understand more. Within West Yorkshire we are a bit of an outlier because we have fatal 5 rather than fatal 4, and the reason we have the fatal 5 is because we look at careless and reckless driving as being a key contributory factor. 56% of all KSIs in 2023 were down to careless and reckless driving behaviours, and we are trying to influence those behaviours, we are trying to educate. There's lots of work to do, and unfortunately sometimes when it comes to a collision it just happens that there is a number of people present within the vehicle. So you may think back to the event in Wakefield where unfortunately 6 people were killed. That is because there were 4 in a car and 2 on a motorbike at that point in time. Can we plan for that? Not easily, but equally, can we learn from that? Absolutely. And can we do something moving forward? Yes. And we need to make sure we're influencing those behaviours across the board.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor
Can I please ask a follow-up on that particular issue?
Yeah, you was going to speak next, so ask you thoroughly.
Thank you. It's just, if you've got an incident, going to the Calderdale bit that Councillor Kingston related to, and it was a specific incident with a lot of people, with a few people in a car. If it's a car that is, and passengers and people that are not from the area, is it still classed as a Calderdale incident? Because it's going to happen again, Councillor Kingston, in the next set of figures, because the A58 and the A672 are lethal roads, and the A672 has just had another 3 deaths on it. And they were young people from Oldham, and they were travelling in the middle of the night. Now, that is that is, I don't know how you can sort that, but it's actually a flaw in the way that we're counting it, because it's not a local issue, it is an issue that's been brought in from elsewhere.
It's our road.
People who don't...
It's our road that's the problem.
Yes, but
And that's why Safe Roads is one of the Vision Zero system, pillars.
Yeah.
Well then, the Chair said I've got another question which actually all relates, and it's all intermingled.
And that's for Mary.
And it all relates to this, which is the M62 and road linking the M62, because if the M62 had not been closed, then this incident would not necessarily have occurred. So it's about that strategic level of how we work with other authorities, say with Greater Manchester Mayor, with the Yorkshire Mayor, with everybody else around in Areas England, to try and get a better outcome from the issues on that road, because the only mechanisms over the canals are through moorland roads, which are not necessarily the best roads in the world, and you can't really change it. A hairpin bend on a moorland road that's unlit, you can't change, you can't decide to just alter. So I wondered, that's one of my questions really, is how can we do something strategically? The figures show that 100,000 vehicles travel between junction 22 and 24 on a daily basis eastwards, and 78,000 travel westwards. It's one heck of a lot of vehicles to start putting through roads that are really not made for the traffic that's sending them on, which then can cause the incidences of fatality. So it's which comes first, the chicken and the egg, but I mean, actually, a very difficult one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off and I'll let Nick quick. So that's why, we've got these strategic travel plans that are about using trains, getting out of cars, cycling, trying to prevent 78 or 80 or 9,000 cars going one way all the way motorways, taking out those trips because people are using other forms, working from home, whatever it is that they're doing. But also, we are working with other mayors, so we've got a White Rose agreement with North Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, around a whole range of coterminous issues, and Vision Zero is one of them. So we're currently talking to both North Yorkshire and then one of them coming to visit to talk about Vision Zero, and South Yorkshire about the work that we're doing, because they want to make sure that they do some great work that we're doing, and we benefit from that work, but also what they're doing, we can benefit from what they're doing. GMP, Great Manchester, and the Mayor there, they've actually got a very, very well established Vision Zero board and activity, so there is a lot of work. We need to make sure that those strategic partners like Highways England, like DFT, are also around that table, because the motorway network, whether it's open or closed, is a decision beyond any of us in this room. It's about when we're going to do the upgrade to the, whatever doing the upgrade to. It's all that, but of course they would never say, by sending somebody onto that air road, we can't say that air road is dangerous because they've come out the air road. So there's all sorts of partners that need to get around the table. And driving is safe if you're driving safely. You're not using your mobile phone, you put your seatbelt on, your car's safe because your manufacturers have all decided to work to a very high standard and put all those design things in place. Your roads are safe because everyone's learned the lessons of crashes and deaths that happened in the past, and have put all that learning into the design of the roads that they've got, and everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing and not taking drugs and all the rest of it. It's a very complex jigsaw, and all the pieces have got to be put in at the same time. So, Neil, anything you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Alison. So, in terms of what's just been discussed, we do actually have a monthly update with our counterparts within Greater Manchester. We've worked with them around their strategy in terms of developing it. So, when you look at their strategy and ours, they're very, very similar in terms of how we work together. And in terms of delivery plans, again, it is something that we work very, very closely with them on, and that is something for me is really, really important in terms of those borders. And I'm saying Greater Manchester there, just picking up on your point, but actually within West Yorkshire, we've actually put forward a Vision Zero for the north, and I actually chair that group, and we bring together a number of different areas of the country in the north to to try and make sure that we're all working together to influence behaviours. So you mentioned the M62, so we're talking to Merseyside, Greater Manchester, obviously ourselves across the London side, but all four are part of the same group so that we can get that consistency and make sure that we are altering those behaviours. But where we're talking about Vision Zero for the North there, what we're also thinking about is our national campaigning as well in terms of lobbying, and one of the things that we are looking forward to is the national strategy, and that will certainly support all of us to move forward. But again, we are trying to push very hard nationally around big change, because we need it.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Many of our residents have a concern about illegal e-bikes and e-scooters, and there's nothing specific in the report or strategy writing to prevent that. I know that other forces are having farming on these types of mobility aids. I'm just wondering what your view is on how much of a problem this is in West Yorkshire, and whether it's getting required attention, what the strategies are for dealing with what is a menace on living our roads and pavements.
It's a major issue. It's raised with us all the time. It's not helped because there's inconsistent practice nationally. The law is that there's pilots all over the place, but not in West Yorkshire, so you're not allowed to have your e-scooter, your electric e-scooter, or your e-bike above a certain CC, and obviously we know that people are putting bigger engines or much bigger batteries on so they can go faster, so they're not legal at all. It's an absolute nightmare. We need government to step in and legislate so that the police have got the clarity and powers that they can use, but we also need to be working with trading standards, with food outlets, because these delivery companies are a massive contributor to this problem. We need licensing. We're licensing the food outlets also part of the response, because I think how you address this is by putting the pressure on the big businesses who are trying to sell their food by saying you're not going to license you to do ABC unless you meet these criteria, and you're actually checking the bikes and the people that you're employing to deliver food on, AA others employing. So our West Yorkshire Police I've seen quite a lot of them this week, different forces doing targeted sessions, going in and taking bikes off people. It looks very dangerous to me. That's all on the TV the other day. And I know that in Leeds in particular, we've had a few of those exercises taking place, because it was raised with me by Rima on Message of the Mayor last year. I raised it with my CSP partners. Actually, it was Mr. Derek Ben, who agreed to go in and do some work on that, and that's when we all agreed that licensing and trading standards had a big role to play, and we were going to go away and see what powers they might have in this space for the local authorities and key partners. And obviously the police could only do the enforcement as and when they saw these bikes, but what policy changes could we make, and what legislation could we be promoting to government to change. So it's a huge issue for the public. I mean, I've been knocked down several times, so I'll share people's pain. But the police are doing what they can when they see, but obviously they're very, very fast bikes, illegally fast bikes, and they're zooming off and going down all sorts of little giggles, and so very difficult to catch. Before I bring Neil in, I'll ask the Deputy Principal Inspector to respond.
No, I think in our starting point, because of that difference in legislation, and I think the fact that people do think quite often that they can use, I think there is a sort of a real sort of lack of understanding about what people can utilise and not. So that first port of call for people who we haven't come across before is education in the first instance, but then people who are clearly persistent users of e-bikes and different things that they ought not to be using, then face the likelihood of having them removed. But as the Deputy Mayor says, very difficult when often, again, as with the off-road bikes, quite often people don't have the correct safety equipment on, and they're off up little alleyways, not necessarily tend to be able to pursue, especially when you're a bit too fast for people to run after. So it's a difficult one really, in terms of tactics to be able to crack it. I think education is the key, and legislation.
So, yeah, absolutely completely agree with everything that's been said. What I would add, it is an area that has been discussed at the Roads Policing Coordination Group, where all of the roads policing leads for all the districts do come together. There is some real good pockets of activity within some communities, and they're looking to share the learning from that so they can move forward. There is information for officers on the intranet within West Yorkshire Police around the legalities, and without going into too many detail about it, it specifies around Sur on-type bikes and a whole host of other things to try and help officers to understand exactly where they stand with certain bits, and that is being coordinated centrally. We're doing some comms around it as well. We actually did a radio advertisement around Christmas around e-bikes and e-scooters and the purchase of them. We're looking to do further work around it as well, and we are working with the Institute for Transport Studies at Leeds University around a project called eSafe, which is very much looking at the elements around this and learning from it so that we can move forward. So yeah, there is a lot going on in this area, and we will get more on the next page.
Can I have a follow-up? Thank you for all that. So I'm assuming that there's going to be something specific fed into future reports around e-bikes and e-scooters. Can you just try and help us, because from my understanding as a layperson, the police already have powers to deal with these vehicles, which is safe to catch them. What additional legislation we go on for? I mean, if somebody's sat on a twisted e-bike that doesn't need power, then you do 30 miles an hour, pretty bright.
So I suppose number one is, who's selling e-scooters? So e-scooters are not legal in West Yorkshire.
No.
Who's selling them in West Yorkshire? That shouldn't be allowed. Should have legislation stopping that. I don't know about these deaf pilot sites. It's just so confusing. Because you could have a pilot site in, I don't know, Hereford, where it's legal, and you come to West Yorkshire and you move, so you think it's legal. So we need some legislation around where you can and can't use e-bikes and e-scooters. Personally, I thought they should have them at all because they're legal. I also think we need some legislation around the batteries or the engines that they're buying to add to the bikes to make them go faster. Who's providing them? You know, so get rid of them.
So it's
We have
the
to-
supply side.
Yeah, it's all the supply side stuff. And then obviously the police can only stop people that they can catch. And yes, we're getting more neighbourhood policing officers offering that visibility in communities. But you know, it'd be very rare. You'll see lots of people on e-bikes and there'll be lots of police there ready to jump on them. We've really got to manage the source in order to reduce that scourge on our streets, and that's where the legislation needs to be clear.
And that might give you some clarity in messaging as well, because I think a strong public message saying that this is legal is also what's required as another thread, isn't it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The last question on this topic, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. Yes, short one. About local police teams having access to speed monitoring equipment. So a number of examples have been raised where equipment's been broken. It can be difficult for different teams to access equipment. And I was wondering if there is any scope for the police being able to access some of the mayor's community safety funding, as well as community groups, because I think Councillor Carter made a good point earlier on about rural areas and also urban communities where there aren't so many community groups able to access it. So is there scope for being able to access, the police being able to access the community safety funds?
They already do. But sometimes they get more money than communities do. So I'm expecting contentious with the communities, but they'll have to get more money. But whether they get it for equipment, it's all down to the criteria of the fund. And so I don't think you can get capital equipment using the Safe Communities Fund.
Right.
So I don't think you can. So you're talking about those same things.
Yeah, some of the mobiles.
Yeah. I don't think you can buy those using the Safe Communities Fund. But the police can access the Safe Communities Fund, and they do.
Okay, so is that at the local level, district level?
Any police, so
Usually neighbourhoods, isn't
the neighbourhood policing team often bid for and get monies. Sometimes they do it in partnership with the third sector organisations, so when it's a multiple bid, so the 80,000 that I talked about earlier, I think the police were involved in that bid in Calderdale for 80,000. So they often bid and they're very successful. The police, the fire can bid, ambulance could bid, as long as it's a community project that's delivering the policing crime.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Alison, for such a really good part and police and self.
Chair, sorry, I think Councillor David was going
Won't be taking more.
It's a follow-up question to the previous
I
question.
told you before, Councillor Edwards.
It's not the same question, it's a
No,
follow-up
I-
to what was said.
I'll come to the end of the meeting, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Thank you for the work that you are doing and your community safe. We now move on to item 7.
I'd just like to thank our colleague Tiffany, who's not here today because she's getting married. So we let her off so she can get married when she's promised that she's actually watching this live stream. While she's getting her makeup on, she's watching us live stream because she's so committed. Tiffany just there, well, we'll be taking something else after today. Is watching. She wrote this paper. I'm just really happy to answer any questions. The paper's in 2 parts. So there's the white paper on paper, and then there's the PSD update. So I've got to take them both together. We've got the West Yorkshire Police representative to answer any questions on the PSD paper.
Yeah, we've got a few questions for you. First one is from Councillor C.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, yeah, so my question was around the PSD law, which was, I believe, funded for a period of time. But it's great to see that that law has made a very positive impact on complaints handling procedures, and whether that law is going to be made permanent and taken forward and funded.
Well, we better ask the deputy chief come to talk because we're sure you don't know.
Which role did you say, sorry? PSD
reviewing officer. We asked this question actually in our last policy governance, but I think we were told by 1.7.
So we have reviewed officers, which is a permanent role. I think the role we might be talking about is the hearings officer, which is a temporary role.
Okay.
We are just in the process now of putting in hearings that make that permanent role for the role.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
No, it's okay. That's why I get some questions.
Sorry, Tanya, could you please introduce yourself for a while?
Tanya Wilkins, I'm Chief Superintendent and Head of Professional Finance.
Okay, thank you. Was that okay?
That's fine, thank you, Chair. Yeah.
Yeah, and also from Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your report, and as you know, I'm very interested in complaints. So just looking at the report from what Tiffany's done, and obviously you're not able to answer without because I'd appreciate an answer afterwards. So on page 2 of that report, there's a table giving different categories of report, and one of the categories towards the lower half of the page gives the number of upheld reviews where there was no recommended course of action, and that number was 13 in 24-25. And I just wondered if, Deputy Mayor, if you were aware of what the cases were when there's kind of no recommended action taken forward, or...
So we've been very well briefed by Tiffany, and I was reading her email to us in the commentary. So what she's saying is that there has been a great number of cases where police have either accepted it informally or informally and then decided there's no further action, and that's increased over this quarter in particular. And West Yorkshire Police are doing some work with their review team to make sure that they act appropriately when they're making decisions about whether something's informally, formally, and whether they're actually going to doing more work on that and how they communicate that. It might be perfectly acceptable not to do more work on it, but how do they communicate that? Because it leaves the person dissatisfied, which is why they're coming to us to review. And so when we're upholding, so the number of cases, the percentage of cases that Tiffany and the team are upholding, this latest quarter has actually gone up again to, I think it's 38% of reviews have been sent back to West Yorkshire Police. It's often because the complainant wasn't told why no further action was being applied, and they were obviously not very happy about that because if something's recorded formally, we expect action to take place. But it might just be the action is to record it formally, but there isn't anything more to do. But how do you explain that? Also, it might be that someone is somebody who raises multiple reviews, which they have the right to do, and they're raising them validly, but actually there's no further action because it's a second bite or third bite of the cherry. So that might be something that a member of the public chooses to do, but there's no further action that needs to be taken. But we might say, for example, you haven't explained properly to that person, so we uphold the review on the basis that there's been no explanation, not on the basis that there's been no further action.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's because of communications issues, almost needs to be on the end of that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes some things outside Schedule 3, so informal, which should be inside Schedule 3, so sometimes it's about making your judgment. Not that any action will change, whether it's inside or outside, it's how the person feels.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's all
And
complicated.
it would be very interesting to hear what the outcomes of that review were taken.
Yeah, and obviously we have no power to make anyone do anything other than take a look. But yeah, we can't say we disagree with the outcome because we choose not to take that function on from West Yorkshire Police because we're not daft. But yeah.
Because even if the outcome is not as positive as the complainant, would then wish, there's always the opportunity to learn from that and to things moving forward. And most people who make a complaint would say the positive outcome for them is that things are different, people come after or not.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just about the process. That people know there's a process and they feel that the process hasn't been either properly followed or not fully followed in the way that it could, or it's not been communicated. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's great. Thank you. Taking a big part of me.
Or she's yelling at the screen.
That's why we say whichever way.
Councillor Kingston.
Thank you. The table shows a significant increase in review requests received over the last year, a rise of 27.8%, and we just wondered what you understand about the reason for that.
So it's very similar to what I've just said. So some of that is because police have decided to look at things informally, and the complainant wanted it to be formal. So people have really sent a review to us because we didn't agree that it's informal, it should be informal. Sometimes it's because it's one complainant will complain multiple times because they can, and it's their right to do so. So, for example, one person last year sent in 11 valid reviews in 2024-25. 11. So that's, that person's right to do it. They're a persistent complainer, and they want that review process. So that adds to the numbers, and then again, it's a further work one. Should we, one of the reasons why the review comes to us is because the police have decided not to have any further action, there's no further work needed, and people are not happy about that, so the review comes to us for review.
So just
but there have been more requests for reviews overall, that's the other thing. So there are more complaints to the police, and then there are more review requests sent to us.
Yes, I just wondered if you feel that this increased workload that that's creating is sufficiently managed.
It's been sufficiently managed by our incredible team who are brilliant, and it ebbs and flows, so at the minute they're very, very, very busy, and hopefully that will end and they'll have a bit of a breather, catch up, but you don't know what you don't know, and the police are getting more complaints, which is not a bad thing, because the public clearly feel confident in raising concerns, that learning hopefully will happen as a result of those complaints, so it's not a bad thing. at some point, do we need to look at our resources? Possibly. But obviously we'll only do that in extremis because that will all come from the police fund, and then it's a bit of a cycle, isn't it? Because then if you're taking money away from direct policing, you're going to get more complaints.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. I'd like to pick up section 3, equality, diversity and inclusion benefits. I know this is something you're particularly passionate about. So, we're aware there are historic patterns of underreporting within different minority groups, and that impacts on the likelihood of people complaining. 3.3 talks about the analytical work, exploring areas of disproportionality. Do we have, to what extent does the equality statistical data that's being gathered indicate increased confidence in reporting amongst minority groups? What can be done to increase this? And a request for future reports, would it be possible for us to see this data as well when we're considering complaints, to understand who's complaining and whether there have been any changes?
Are you talking about the PSD paper?
Yes. So it's page 4.
Yeah, but it's referring to the PSD paper. Yeah, so basically, as part of our scrutiny of West Yorkshire Police and understanding rates of disproportionality, we're constantly asking questions about how do we drill down into the detail to understand what's driving race disparities or other disparities. So this paper is specifically around police officers and staff, so this is about the internal disciplinary disciplinary processes within West Yorkshire Police. So we've just received that report about 3 weeks ago, and we're going to have a separate meeting with Tanya to go through the detail of that. And it's one of several reports we've had, but this is much more detailed than the others we've had. We're always asking different questions. So, for example, at one point, we didn't actually have disproportionality at gross misconduct stage, but we had disproportionality at misconduct stage, and we were trying to understand why that wasn't. So we wanted a lot of work to be undertaken with middle managers who were referring lower level conduct matters into the misconduct process rather than the gross misconduct. So it wasn't as though something terrible had happened, so it was straight to gross misconduct. It was lower level conduct matters that were leading to misconduct referrals, and that was happening disproportionately for black and minority ethnic officers than for their white counterparts. And so we wanted to know about the decision making of those middle managers, those sergeants, those inspectors, and was there some work that could be done at that level to help us understand, was that about unconscious bias? Was that something else that we could understand and that would lead to a training programme or some practice issues or policy changes or whatever it was? Actually, a big piece of work was undertaken and there were no themes identified. Every case was different, so it was really difficult to pin that down. So the latest report that we've got is looking a much wider data set. We're going to interrogate it, Wendy and I together, to ask some of see what some of the key lines of inquiry might be, and then we're going to meet up. Some of that data will lead to identification of some individuals because we have so few black minority ethnic staff in West Yorkshire. So I'm sure that there will be some high level information that can be shared with Panel, because in any event, West Yorkshire Police do an annual report that they put on their website about disproportionality, and that's in their misconduct processes as well as stop and searches and all sorts of things. So you'll be able to see, we won't be able to see it in the same level of detail that we do, because we can't risk the identification of individuals, because we're talking such small numbers of black Caribbean officers in particular, and I don't know, I can't remember the data set, but if you could, potentially someone could understand the identity of somebody from trial.
Okay, thank you. Trevor.
Yeah, thanks. It's a very quick one relating to the PSD 3.5 through the 3.8 changing the heading. The way I read it, it's moving from a sort of central vetting to individual vetting by supermarkets.
Yes and no. So there's going to be the central vetting as usual. All it's complicated by the conversations about the Centre of Policing, so NCOP, the National Centre of Policing, is talking about having some coordinated, centralised role in vetting across all forces. So we don't know if that is in setting the standards or setting the guidance. Currently Project Policing does that. So we don't know what that looks like yet. So put that to one side. So that's in the mix. So West Yorkshire Police will continue to do the vetting of new people coming into the organisation, but also when there's a change in role, those staff and officers will change in roles, because this is a policy that they adopted a while ago because it was identified that that was a gap. Any change in role will get re-vetted. And then you've still got your APP good practice guidance, which obviously says that from time to time you should be vetting people, which I'm sure they're still doing. But every year, as part of your appraisal, you're going to do this annual internal integrity review. So just like we've got to do our code of conduct, so like every year I've got to fill in with full annual code of conduct just to show that I understand them and declaring the interest on an annual basis. Every West Yorkshire Police officer, I presume staff as well, will go through that process with their line manager. And this is a catch-all, so to make sure that if someone isn't moving roles or isn't one of the random people that gets chosen to be picked within that 10-year period, that there's that annual conversation so it can be held in account. If it then emerges that there's been a change in circumstances, a change in associations, some allegation that's pending that they've not told anybody about, or another, that they're then accountable for that. There's a record of that, and then the police can swiftly follow that through with any disciplinary processes because it's all properly audited and there's a process in place that is 100%. Because obviously you've got to be beyond reproach when it comes to policing.
My question on that is, given the issues around completion of non-completion, PDRs pick up on over the last year or two. And I think we've got a report coming back in September to us for an update on that. There is a potential here, if that isn't sorted, for a slip through the net.
We'll see, but differently to PDRs, the middle managers, the managers who are responsible for making sure they undertake these with their staff, they're subject to disciplinary processes if they don't do it. So they're not subject to disciplinary processes if they don't do the PDRs. If they don't do these checks,
We've got very high rates
yeah.
in this first quarter when we've expected everybody to do their AIVR, really very high rates of completion. We've been pushing that a lot, and we'll continue to do an annual basis. We've both done ours, and it's really clear. You asked what circumstances have changed, and there's a really clear acknowledgement from the member of staff to say, I understand and I have read and understood these key things that tell me how I'm expected to behave, both in the workplace and in terms of the public, and that's signed off. And like I say, that's all automated, goes to line managers, and then it's captured on the system. If you want anything else to do that.
No, I think in relation to that, we've seen around 92% completion rates. So people that haven't completed it is purely down to long-term sickness or maternity. But we have got an app, if we can access to see when those people return and they do complete it. I think the difference with the AIVR, which is different to the PDR, is if you don't do the annual integrity vetting review, then you don't have any vetting, therefore you can't work in policing. And I think that is a real incentive for people to make sure that they do complete it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And we'll come Samson for this. We move on to item 8.
Chair, sorry, I have a question if there's time. Is that okay?
Sorry,
Yeah, thank you. I'm referring to the big data report, the information data. And it's good to see that the forcing we got.
When we sign.
Yeah.
I don't think we've got it when you, but it's only
Right. Well, yeah. Okay. Overall, the complaints log, both in absolute terms and per 1,000 employees, so relatively, are both up reasonably on the year before, although I do know that we still remain below the MSF and national average, which is encouraging. But could you give us any insight into what some of the reasons for that might be, and whether there's any cause for concern with Deputy Mayor?
So are these the complaints that refer to the figures there?
It's the bulletin, it's the national bulletin.
Oh, the eyewitness disabled, yeah. So I think that but it relates back to the things we've already said. So West Yorkshire Police are receiving more complaints, and I think part of that is because the public feel more confident to complain. West Yorkshire Police have done a lot of work with our third sector partners on what constitutes, for example, abuse of position for sexual purpose. So they did a huge event which I went to with all our board providers, so 45 board providers were all in that room, where it was outlining really clarity. This is what constitutes an abuse of that position, and this is what you should do. This is the route to reporting, and I think that events like that, and they've done other events in other places. We've also now got a national complaint line, so a hotline where people can complain about misconduct, police misconduct, which is run by national. I'm just trying to remember the name of the national helpline that we just funded for people to complain about the police. It'll come to me. It's the one that you can ring for any crime stoppers. That's it. Crime stoppers helpline. And so there's more routes in to complain about policing, and I think that people are, and I think it's a good thing.
And that's, I'm assuming that's could be reflected in the national trend.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can I just ask one specific follow-up question, very quickly? And that's just in terms of the categories that are reported. There just seems to be one outline, and although the numbers are not high, it seems persistently different, and that is on discriminatory behaviour, whereas the national and the MSF are half what our figure is at 6%. So, and I'm just wondering, what could possibly explain that?
So it's on quarterly bulletin. Allegations logged. So the allegations are not proven at this stage. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the reason is. I mean, I'm hoping it's because more people are holding the police to account for what they perceive as racially motivated discrimination. And, the fact that that's something that we've been really pushing here in West Yorkshire. Maybe it's giving confidence to the public, but maybe it's because there's more racial discrimination here in West Yorkshire, and that might be a good question. But these are allegations, not proven. So until we get the output data and then map the two and compare it to the national, it's hard to say whether or not we're an outlier or not. My sense is we're not an outlier, and we know that staff have been dismissed for racism in the last 12 months. So that's the WhatsApp group. We have a number of people in a WhatsApp group who were retired or were dismissed not so long ago, and racism was part of the content of those WhatsApp messages. So maybe that's a spike that's part of this data. I mean, I don't know the detail, but what we can do is go away, but we need to look at the outcomes, because these are allegations, and allegations don't always get upheld.
Now, the reason for the allegations why there is a disparity is because we've changed the way we record those types of claims. So, because we really want to understand discrimination in West Yorkshire, we have a specific questionnaire if there's any hint in the complaint, and we go back to the complainant and ask them specific questions around discrimination. So we will see an increase in allegations purely because of the way we've changed our processes. I would imagine other forces are not being as intrusive as we are with complaints.
places with annual survey complaint received by the committee. Joe, can I go to you?
Yeah, thank you. This is just the annual report that we'll bring with regard to complaints received by this panel and the actions that we take in order to consider whether or not these are recorded. As you can see from the report, we have no recorded complaints during 24-25, but we did receive 19 complaints, which we did record, 17 of which were signposted to PSD, and 2 further complaints advised to report elsewhere. One complaint review was undertaken because it fell into a different complaint that had been received and recorded in the previous year. But on conclusion of the review, the panel upheld the decision of the complaints subcommittee. So this is just a paper for the panel to know.
Okay, thank you. Item 9 is complaint. This is an annual review for the police and crime. Sharon as review is following from a legal perspective, and there are no questions, changes to the policy. However, I need one member to oppose and one second.
As chair, oppose.
Councillor Simi and Councillor Carter. Thank you very much. Item 10. This is the main response to public issue. Alison?
Yeah, thank you for this meeting. Just to update the panel on some more money that's coming into West Yorkshire. So we learned a couple of weeks ago that following representation from West Yorkshire Police to Government around County Lines Task Force initiative, that they were funding other forces but not West Yorkshire. West Yorkshire put together a really good bid to be included in that task force, and the good news is that that's been agreed. So we will receive £1.3 million to deal with county lines. We will get a special team led by, I think it's the Chief Inspector, 2 sergeants and 10 DCs stroke PCs, and they will obviously work alongside all the other policing resources we've already got, including the ROCU on county lines, but it will bring that additionality, which will be really welcome. And as well as that, there's £300,000 being given to a national charity called Catch 22. I personally would have preferred to have offered that as a commissioning opportunity more widely, included our West Yorkshire organisations to be for that one, but we didn't have a choice. It's a package that comes from the Home Office, and you take all of it, like take none of it. So obviously we're taking it, so Catch 22 are coming. They're great, but no problem with them personally, but you know, I do like to be able to be more transparent about these things. So 300,000, and that will be to work with the families of children and young people who are being exploited into county lines to try and come up with some better solutions to divert those young people away from that criminality. So it's good news for West Yorkshire, and we're looking forward to that project starting. And you know, welcome to West Yorkshire Police for forcing the funders to do this work, which is good. Obviously, the summer surge, which we've already talked about, launched, I think it was 30th of June. So we'll report back on the good work, because we have to do these monthly feedback monitoring forms to the Home Office, so we'll be able to tell you all about that in the forms we'll take the next time. In June, I also went to the Home Affairs Select Committee to talk about VOG funding. The report is, we got an embargo copy yesterday, but it's launched today, so you can see that I've quoted lots and lots, which is good. But the biggest thing that I wanted was longer term funding for our third sector, our third sector in particular. And that's really strong in the recommendations of the report that the VOG sector should get at least 3 to 5 year funding. So whether it happens, we'll see, but that's a really strong recommendation in the report, which I'm pleased about. And I know that our third sector providers will be pleased that we fighting for them. We're having, so I said last time that we've launched our service finance consultation now formally, so you might get emails asking you to share the survey, you might see the survey on social media, please share it, but we've got a service finance strategy roundtable on the 23rd of July, which is the first of our many face-to-face sessions that we're going to be having with the public to talk about serious violence, what people's priorities are, what people think we should be doing, and hopefully people will come, so you are all invited. We'll send an invite with location, etc. Because I don't finally, as I said, we've got a Vision Zero event taking place in Leeds, Millennium Square, 14th of August, starting at 10 till 4 o'clock. All our Vision Zero partners will be there. We hope to see as many of you as possible supporting Vision Zero and finding out what we're doing. Thank you very much. Oh, and I should just say finally, that today is the last time that the Deputy Chief Constable will present to the panel, because in a couple of weeks' time, Catherine will be retiring. So I just want to put on record my personal thanks for the work that she's done here in West Yorkshire, because as Deputy, as you know, John Faye's like to say it, she's all the work. So it's really important that we recognise that the Deputy actually does all the operational day-to-day stuff, and Catherine's done a brilliant job, and we will be safe.
Thank you. Congratulations. Yeah, congratulations on that. Where was now? Questions? Yeah, that's like that.
Thanks, Chair. It was, I listened to Excellent County Lines. So now you've told me that there was no strategy as yet as to how that's going to work. Would it be possible to know how that's going to function at some point, and the strategy behind it, and see where it's going to work across? It's going to be across all the whole structure and every county line, because we have quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a strategy, can't we?
Yeah, so we've already got a strategy, obviously, because the serious organised crime teams, we've got ROCU already working on county lines, so this will be additional resources, and so they'll audit that strategy, look at what's working, what isn't, but they'll learn from what's coming nationally as well, because this money is following what's happened, I think, in 4 or 5 other areas, so there'll be a lot of learning that we can pick up, we don't want to start from scratch. So once West Yorkshire Police are in a position to share in high level, because obviously it will all be very sensitive in terms of don't want the criminals doing what West Yorkshire Police are doing, but yeah, I'm sure we can share things privately, not publicly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yeah, very quickly, really, mine just 2 points that I'd like to press forward. It's under the Violence Against Women and Girls agenda. I think, Chair, a priority for the future, if we could have some feedback on the Stay Put project and whether it is going to be rolled out across the whole of West Yorkshire. My second point is a plea. Whenever you're in front of these committees and you can influence any decisions, then can I please press that we try and do something around early release, which I've mentioned to you. I won't go into it, but I've mentioned to you before. But recently there's been a programme on TV in police custody, 24 hours in police custody, and it was around one of the predators that the police have been chasing for a couple of years. Eventually caught the person, 7 victims came forward, but a plea bargain meant he was only charged for 1. So we let down, the system is letting down the other 6 victims, and I don't think overcrowding in jails should penalise our victims. I think our victims should get justice, and I'm sure when you're in front of anybody, you will be saying that. So I will say that, absolutely. We've said it to Siobhan, and we will be absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else, Alison? No? Thank you, Alison, for the report. So we move on to item 11 on the key decisions. So there was quite a few this month that have been done. Item 12, agenda action plan. There's no change to the plan. However, we do have one item added for November 18. And item 14 is complaint received to the panel. There's no complaint received on behalf of the mayor to mayor since the last meeting. So this just takes us down to any other business. And I've got my other business, but just remember that 2 members actually this room and like previous room where I'm coming from. I personally find this very noisy. Blowing out there. So don't know what members. Sorry?
I was okay for me. Either room.
Either room. So who would prefer, let's see preference by hands, to stay out, to go back on the road. Pardon?
It's probably better in the other one, I think.
In the other room. Okay, we'll send an email out and see what happens.
I'm happy to go with that.
Yeah, I find there's so many traffic coming in from this handful. Yeah, so we're just going to thank members and happy retirement.
Thank you.
Is it John? No, happy retirement. I do hope you enjoy whatever you choose to do.
Thank you.
And I wish you all a lovely summer break. Enjoy the couple of months you have. And I look forward to see you on September. Look.